evening, everyone. Good evening, and happy Easter to you all. If I must say the truth, I am not really into all these celebrations. Of course, this particular celebration is very special because it marks the time that our Savior rose. So, but today I've just been, I've just been joyful, probably because today is Easter. So currently I'm smiling. So in that joyful spirit, I want to welcome us to today's class. And I want to also encourage us to be very attentive to the class. Try as much as you can not to be distracted because we're actually moving and initially most of the things we were doing was just introductions, introducing what design is, introducing what development is, introducing the software we're going to be using for the design. And then on one of the classes, I also introducing the software we're using for the development. So, but we actually didn't really do much that day. But today, from now, we have actually gone into learning. So, like I said, I want to urge us to really be attentive. And I just welcome us to the class. We are going to actually start by either 7:15, that's 15 minutes past 7, or 20 minutes past 7, depending on when. I think I'll give just a grace of that's 15 minutes past 7 or 20 minutes past 7. And then I will start because, I just want to see if I can wait so that every other person can join in. So that we don't have a situation where we have started teaching and then some people join in and then they can't, cope. So I'll just give them that grace of 7:15 or 7:20. And then once it's that time, I'll officially start. So thank you guys for joining. And thank God I didn't forget this. If you look at the comment section, that's the chat section actually. It is stated there that if you join, you should state your name and your location. As that location, just your state, so that we can better communicate. If you are joining from Abuja, you just say your name, say your location. If you're joining from Lagos, if you're joining from Kano, if you're joining from Enugu, just your name and your location. So thank you very much as you comply, and I wish us a successful learning session. Good evening, guys. It is 7. It's 20 minutes past 7. So those of us that are not yet that have not currently joined the class, we are going to I don't know how we're going to do that. We're just going to try and see if we can cope. So what I'm basically saying is, if you join after now, you are going to just try and cope, or you can as well go back to watch the video. After all, this the video is always saved. So let me just quickly bring my screen. Yep. So this is our Figma. We have already talked about this app, so I won't really go much into talking about the app. Figma is just an app for designing UI and UX. I won't really go into explaining what UI and UX is, because I've already done that in the previous courses. You can check our previous videos. So okay, let me just quickly log out of. Let me switch. This is actually my main account, but I created one other account for this course. So let me switch to that account. Maybe I'll just do a quick introduction of what the application is, so that maybe to refresh our memory. And then, thank God I didn't forget. I gave us assignment the last time, and none of us got back to me. None of us said anything about the assignment, so it's not really a very good practice. It's not really a very good, I should say, habit. I don't mean it the wrong way, don't get me wrong. I should say culture. Learning, especially learning in tech, has its pattern, has its culture, has things you must obey. I overemphasized on this thing. I'm sure I did, because every student I teach, that's the first thing I try to inculcate in there. That's actually learning ideology, the ideology of learning tech. The ideology is, you can't rely or depend on just the amount of hours or seconds or minutes you spend on the class. You can't do that. If you do that, you won't learn. You need to personally take extra time to practice. So learning tech, it doesn't matter the field, programming, development, design, it doesn't matter the field. The best practice, the best culture, not even the best, the only culture is 20% of gaining knowledge and then 80% of practicing that knowledge. Because this is not something we do on our everyday lives. You have to practice and practice to master. It's not just book or English that you just learn and then you speak. It's something you have to practice and do. So probably this is the last time I will say it. I wasn't very happy. I wasn't very encouraged that I gave an assignment and then somebody responded, but the person wasn't even part of. The person is just somebody I informed about the class, and then he joined, right? He was the only person that did the assignment. He's not even supposed to be part of us. So it's not very good. And if we had done that, I'm sure we would have encountered issues. That is those issues are the issues that I would have solved in this class today. Would have addressed it. So I don't even know if we actually really learned what I did the last time, or if I should move on. That's why, please, aside from you learning, practicing to learn, the reason you should attempt the assignment is so that we can know if you have learned it. If you have, then we'll move on. If you have not, we address it on the next class. But today, we are going to move on. So this is the file we're working on the other day. Let me just quickly open the file. Favor from Lagos. Let me quickly welcome you on it. Welcome. You're welcome. Okay. So if we remember, this is the project we worked on the last time. We learned how to create a frame, how to give a frame a border, how to make the border slightly transparent. Like here, the border width is 5. We give it 5 pixels for the border width. We give the transparency 50%, and we set it to the inside and not to the center or outside. I explained all this that day, so I won't really go. I'll just summarize it and then we'll move on. And then this is the frame, and if we should drill into the frame, we are going to see that we have a group inside. So inside the frame we have a group. Now what is that group? If we should drill into the group, we are going to see that we have an ellipse. Is it ellipse? We're going to see that we have an ellipse inside the group. That's the red circle here, and looking at the properties bar of that ellipse, we are going to see that we gave it a height and a width of 56 pixels, and the opacity is at 100%. The color is red, right? We know how to select color. You just you click on this and you select the color, and then okay, it doesn't have any stroke because we didn't apply that to it. And then if we check under it, we see my circle is red. Under it, another text. So what we actually did here is just we created an element circle or a circle element, and then 2 text elements, and then we styled them. We gave them different properties. So for the circle, I already went through the properties. For the text, we chose this giant profile. Remember the last time I struggled to pronounce this, right? So, but we chose this font. You can just choose font by selecting and then select anyone you want, and then we gave it the font size of 18 pixels. We set it to align to the left. You can set it to align to the middle. You won't really notice that. If I should drag this all the way to the end, you're going to see that as we are increasing the boundaries of the text, the actual text is just situated at the middle. So but if I should select left here, it's going to be situated at the left, and then right, same thing. And then also for this middle, I think this vertical positioning. So if I should increase the height, we are going to see that it is situated at the top. If I sit at the middle, and then at the bottom of the screen. So we did all these the last time. Let me just return it back the way it was. We did all this the last time, and then also for this one too. Okay, because this is set as mixed because we highlighted just this one, and then we made it bold, and then this other one was regular. But we gave all of them a font size of 10 pixels, and then we gave it this, I would say this gray color. So let me just go over it again. Basically, what we did is we created this element, the ellipse element, the text element, and this other text element, and then we grouped the 3 of them. We added the 3 of them into a single group, and then we placed the group inside a frame. Okay, this is actually a very nice way of working, right? But let us look at a scenario where we drag, probably what this frame actually represents. I explained that in our last class. What the frame represents is so what the frame represents is a screen. The frame represents a screen. Sorry, they just took my light and they brought it back. That's why I'm a bit disoriented, but let my other screen just come up because I work with 2 screens. Just give me a second. It's coming up now. Okay, very good. So the frame represents a screen. We could also do the same thing this way. We could use this rectangle. I'm sure we saw what I did. I've explained all this. If you had practiced, you would have known by now. Or if you practice and you try to practice but you can't get it done, you reach out to me. I will explain to you how to do it. So that's the essence of practicing. So we could also do this way. You just select this rectangle tool, and then let me quickly create the same thing. And then I think the radius here is 50. Yeah, so let me give the same radius of 50. And then the stroke, let me give it a stroke of 5. Let me give it a stroke of 5 inches. 5 pixels, and 50% opacity and red. I taught us how to pick this color sampler, color picker. I call it color picker because I came from the world of CorelDRAW. So if we cannot precisely guess the color, normally we could select the color from here, but if we cannot precisely get the color, we could just pick it from here. So we could select the color picker and pick it from here. So we could do that. So and then we'll come back, give it color of 50%, an opacity of 50%, and then we check the height is okay. 268, 234. Let me just quickly do that. 268, 234, 268, 234. Okay, and then let me duplicate so that I won't go ahead to create all this. Let me just duplicate it and place it on top of. Okay, it's under. Now, it's almost the same thing. Now we can just try to align it to the middle, horizontally and vertically. It's the same thing, right? This and this is almost exactly the same. But the only reason they are not the same is because, first of all, two reasons actually. First, one reason, apparent reason that could have, many soft reasons. So the parent reason is that this is a frame and this is a regular rectangle. So rectangle is an element, just the way this ellipse is an element, just the way this text is an element. They are all elements. They are what you use to work. But frame actually represents a parent. Frame represents a parent. It is not. Frame represents a parent. It is not an element. It represents a screen. Sorry, it represents a screen, like a parent of every other element. So the essence of designing is to design to be displayed on a particular screen. This UI UX for this Figma, it's not, you don't use Figma to create graphic design. No, you use Figma to create designs that platforms, like digital platforms, like different screen size, your mobile phone, your tablet, desktop, laptop, big screen, billboard, and the rest, they can render and display. So when you want to design based on one of these frames, sometimes you design strictly for mobile, sometimes you design strictly for desktop, probably because that platform is not meant for mobile, or the platform is not meant for desktop. You design strictly for mobile or desktop or tablets, right? So you use this frame to represent the platform you are designing for on this particular software. You don't use a rectangle because rectangle is an element. So if you want to design for what's it called? If you want to design for, let's say, a mobile phone, you can guess the size of the mobile phone, right? But I already taught us before that you can also come to this place and just select. You see different presets of mobile phone. You have iPhone 16. You have different sizes. So if I select anyone, it's going to now give me the actual size of iPhone 16, so that I don't make mistake when designing. So everything I'm designing, I should design. This is like the actual real size of iPhone 16. So this frame is what is representing the real size of iPhone 16. So if I should summarize again, frame is just like a parent. Frame represents the actual platform we're working on, right? So that is why when you are creating things like this, you don't use rectangle, because if you should pull the rectangle this way, you then realize that this is a separate element. This actually is a group. Rectangle is an element, a group of elements. You just group elements together. Rectangle is also an element, right? So pulling it will just pull that individual element. If I should Control Z. I should Control Z. I just want to bring it back to where it was. And if I should also pull this one, it's just going to pull it out because this is not inside this. So it is not advisable to work that way. This is a single element on its own. This is a group of elements. There's no relationship between them, right? But if you work with a frame, you realize that when you pull the frame, it pulls everything inside it because frame is like a mother element, or it's like a mother of elements. And if you also look at our layers panel, if I should select this frame, you are going to see that every other thing is inside the frame. Let me collapse the frame. You see that it collapsed everything. If I should hide the frame, it will hide everything, right? So, but if I should select the rectangle here, the rectangle is just a single element. There's no relationship. This group here. So if I should collapse this guy, you see that there's really no relationship between this guy, that's the group, and the rectangle. They are just both just standing outside there like that on this canvas. But if I should select the frame, everything here is inside this frame. If I open the frame, you see that all these things are inside. So it's always advisable to work with frames. Okay, let me quickly delete this. And then let me give this the size. It was before I've forgotten the size 268 234 234, right? Okay, that's it. Okay, so now that we have established clearly the difference between a frame and a rectangle. Now let's imagine, just for the sake of responsiveness, this particular this element inside this frame, what I did is I positioned them, I brought the circle, I positioned it inside, brought the text, I positioned it inside. We did all this on our last class, right? We did all this on our last class. So imagine we are now the size of the platform, maybe the size of the phone, the size of the tablet changes, right? Changes, maybe increases. You realize that the increase is not affecting this element at all, and that should not be the case, because you could design for a mobile phone of maybe 300 pixels for the width, and then every phone has their resolution, right? So you can't really control how do I put it? You can't control the phones that people use to access your design, right? So you could design for 300 pixels for the width, and then when somebody wants to use that your app, their phone is now 400 pixels, and that's how all your design is just going to look scattered, right? So I want to introduce a new concept. That's why I'm actually explaining this. So this is how we did it before. I just wanted us to get used to working with Figma, and you realize what we did it this way. But the actual way to do it is not to use frame, right? It's not to use frame as frame. Is to use frame as auto layout. So in Figma there is something that is called auto layout. Auto layout. Okay, let me quickly spell that because it just occurred to me that maybe you might not understand it. It's spelled auto. So automatic layout. This kind of font. Tired of this font. Office. Good. Okay, so it's called auto layout. Good. So this is actually the concept we're going to learn, and this is one of the most important concepts in Figma, because just as the name implies, design is all about laying elements out on the screen. So just as the name implies, this auto layout will help after you have made your settings, right? After you have made your settings, every element that is coming on that particular frame, after you have made your settings on a frame, every element that is coming on that particular frame is going to obey the instructions that you have set. Let me just quickly explain that again. If I should select this and I ungroup it, because it is grouped at the moment, if I ungroup it, now all the elements are just standing individually inside the frame. I look at the frame, then look at all the elements just individually. Now I can place this circle here, I and place this text here. There's nothing really controlling the boundaries. There's nothing controlling, okay, you text, you must be here, this other one must be here. There's really nothing controlling it, right? And it's not a very good way of designing. That's why if you should now increase, if there's any reason for the screen size to increase, it's not just going to affect any of these things, because they can just randomly be placed inside the frame, right? So, but with auto layout, we can then instruct our elements to all be positioned maybe at the middle. And if we should do that, even if we should add a new element into this frame, it is just going to obey the rules that we have set for the previous element. Now, if I should add a new frame here, it is just going to come. There is nothing, let me just give it a color of maybe blue. There's nothing controlling it. It's just going to come and appear anywhere, even on top the previous element, and that's not really a professional design. So now that's why we must learn auto layout, because it's a very important concept on Figma. Sorry about my English. So let's say we have 3 frames. We have this. I'll just duplicate that. I've created I think 2 duplicates. Okay, yeah, 2 duplicates. I have 3. So these 3 now, we can just position them wherever we like. But with auto layout, we can decide that we want them to be vertically positioned, and then we also want the distance between the both of them to be the same. So if the distance between these 2 is 10, these 2 also should be 10, because design is all about consistency. If you should take your phone and, okay, let's even use this. Just let me try to see if I can. Oh, no, it's not working. I wanted to, zoom in so that we can. Let me see if I can do that. But I don't think it will work. No, it's not working. I wanted to zoom in so that we can see. If you see this layout here, each element here, the distance between each element here is consistent. Distance between these 2 is consistent with distance between these 2. Same here. All of them are consistent. And then this distance between the element and the left, that is the left side of the screen. Yeah, the left side of the screen is consistent for all. Unless for this that, the frame is, they are inside the frame. It has to be indented inward. And then even with that, the distance between this and out is equal for all that are inside this frame. So design is all about consistency. Even to the right here, you have it that way. The distance between these, they are equal, just this way. So if you want to manually be positioning them, and you say, position them this way. Imagine the guy that designed this thing, a platform that you can have up to 300 elements, and you are manually positioning up. It's not even efficient, and it's very much error prone. Excel, you are welcome. It's very much error prone. So that's why auto layout is very important, because it will help us manage the issue of consistency. So now we have these 3 squares or rectangle, just as it is now, because there's not really nothing controlling them. You can just move them as you please on the screen. But if I should add auto layout, it can then control. So how to add the auto layout? You select the 3 of them, you right click, and then you come to this. I always use the shortcut. The shortcut is just Shift and A. The Shift key and A. You could do it this way, let me just do it again. After you select the 3, or you select the elements you want to work with, you right click, and then you come to add auto layout. You could do it this way. You could also come to, after selecting them, before selecting them, if I select just 1, you see that on this our properties panel, there's no auto layout here. If I select just 3, look at this, this icon just appeared. So with this icon, you can also add auto layout. So you can do it whichever way you want. Me, I always use the shortcut. So let's just use this. Thank God for Figma. It's making the work very easy. There are a lot of options for doing the same thing. So if I should click this, it has added an auto layout for us. There's really no much difference. Okay, before I go into much, one thing that, well, let me just go into it. I will explain that later. So there's really no much change. But if you look at this panel now, the property panel, you will see that this section called auto layout has appeared. What is really this section? Is used to set the instructions that every element in this auto layout frame must abide to. So if we come to this property panel, we'll see that we have created a frame. Let me Control Z. I want to undo what I did, right? So initially there were individual elements. But if I select the three of them, and then now I'm just going to use my shortcut because that's when I prefer using Shift and the A key. Now I've added an auto layout. We'll see that the frame has appeared. So all the elements are inside the frame, right? So selecting the frame, you can individually select the elements, right? If you want to probably give them, style them also. Yeah, let me even do that so that we can distinguish the elements. So we have red, blue, and yellow. That's good. So selecting the frame, you can come to this property panel. You see that a new section called auto layout has appeared. This section now is used to give the frame instruction. So when you instruct the frame, every element that is inside the frame will obey the instruction. One of those instructions is all these elements are positioned vertically, so from top to bottom. If I should add a new rectangle here and drag it into the frame, let me see if I can do that. Okay, it's just staying on top. Where's the rectangle? Let me click it. Let me select it here. Okay, this is the rectangle. If I should drag it into the frame, it's still the same thing. I should drag it into the frame. You realize it just took its place at the top, and the distance between here, that is the distance between these other ones, is the same distance it just took. So it can't come and stay at this other place here. It can't stay here because it is inside the frame, and the frame already has rules. One of the rules, I will go through the rules so that we can understand, but one of the rules is that every element in the frame must be positioned vertically, so from top to bottom, just like as you have it here on this Figma's design. That is the same auto layout they use. All the elements are positioned from top to bottom with equal distance between them. So here now, all the elements are positioned from top to bottom with equal distance. So we could decide, if you come to this property panel on the auto layout section, you can decide to click on the horizontal. All the elements will be positioned from left to right. Okay, now it is this way. We'll explain all that later. All the elements is positioned from left to right, right? Let me just give this fixed width. I will explain all this later, but let me just quickly give it fixed width. This too, I think. Okay. Okay, this is fixed. So now, initially it was vertical. Arranged vertically. Now it is positioned horizontally. We could do that just like as you have at this top section here. All the elements are, this is also an auto layout. All the elements are positioned horizontally with equal distance between them. The distance between this is equal with this, with this, with this, with this. Just the way also this tab bar is positioned horizontally. So in design you have a lot of different structures. As we go on, we'll better understand. Let me not really make this complex. This auto layout, we are going to stick with auto layout for about 3 different courses so that we can really understand it, because it is the foundation of design in Figma. It's the foundation of design everywhere, as far as it has to do with application development or web development. It might not be called auto layout, like in Flutter, it is called rows and columns, right? In React, which is for JavaScript, it could be called, I've forgotten what it's called in React, so but it is the same concept. So we have to really learn it before we even proceed to the application development. So the third option here is for wrap. We have the first option, which is position items vertically. We have the second option, which is position items horizontally, and then we have the third option, which is wrap items. So with this wrap now, what it means is, you know, the entire width of the frame is equal to the way it is now, the entire width of the frame is equal to the width of all the items combined. That's why you won't really notice the wrap. But if I should reduce the width, you'll see that the elements are wrapping. The way it was before, let me change it to horizontally. Now horizontally, let me also clip it. The way it was before, now all the elements combined, their width is more than the width of this auto layout. You understand? Look at the extent of the auto layout, and then the width of the element exceeds the auto layout. Now you can see it because we can also come to this section here and clip content. Clipping the content means you cut off every other thing that is outside the boundaries of the width and height. If I should do that, look at it has hidden everything. So for some designs we could need this. Yeah, most definitely, to create some effects. You see some designs where some image just enter from outside like this and appear inside. You don't want to see all this other part, you just want to see that half part. Yeah, you could do that. So but in this case here now, let's imagine we are creating something like this. We want to see all the elements, right? This is not what we want to achieve. And let's say the width of the screen is the width of this frame, and then the elements exceed the width of the screen. We don't want to cut some off, so what we do is we use this wrap. If I click on this wrap, every element that is to the left that the screen cannot accommodate, it will just wrap it and bring it to the next line. But that's the idea of the wrap. If I should reduce the screen size again, so it's going to wrap it and bring it to the next line. I increase it. Now I can take 3 elements. So 3 elements are positioned horizontally. The next element I cannot take came to the next line. If I should increase it, this is the way it was before. You can take the entire element. So that's the idea of wrap. So let's go to vertical again so that I can explain some concepts. So for vertical, now we selected the main frame, the auto layout frame. We can see that the width, this is where we set the width. W here for the width, H for the height. So we can see that the width is set to 439. We can set the width to a custom width of maybe 200, right? Okay, it has reduced the width. But most of the times, what we want is to set it to hug the element. So what this one does is, it just assumes the size of the biggest element in that particular auto layout frame. Let me come again. It assumes the height, the width, sorry, of the biggest element in the auto layout frame. So if I should increase this this rectangle here, you are going to see that the auto layout itself is increasing. So the auto layout will shrink. It will keep shrinking down until it becomes the height of the width of the biggest element in the frame. I'm sure we have understood that. So that is just as the name implies, hug means it's hugging the content. So we could also give it a custom height, but if you just drag it out, it will assume that okay, you don't want to hug the element, you're giving it a custom width. Sorry, I'm just mistaking width for height. So I believe we should understand. So in this case, it has set the width. As we are dragging it, it is setting the width. It has set the width. We could also set it custom. Let me set it to 500 if that's what we want. But most of the times, we should set it to hug the element, unless if it is for the main frame of the page or for some special cases. But most of the times, we need it to hug. Just like this one, it is hugging the elements here. So this is for, and then the height too. Most of the times the height at default is set to hug the element. That doesn't mean you cannot increase it to set a custom height, but you should just set it to hug the element. Daniel, Esther, you're welcome. So now we have learned the concept of horizontal and vertical, right? With horizontal and vertical, it's the same concept. The width now is for this entire width. The height is for this height. So you could set it to hug, you could set it to a fixed width or height. So it's just the same concept. Even for wrap, the same concept. So but one other thing is the distance between them. So you have an element here, you have another element here, you have another element here, you have another element here. And all these elements are horizontally positioned from one another. So the distance between them, you can set the distance between each of the elements. So one value will control all the elements, just like you have at this top bar here. So now that value, you can click here to set it here. If I should change it, it's 27. Currently it's 27. Don't mind Figma, I'm trying to zoom in. It's not zooming in. Of course, because it's assuming I want to, zoom in this way to view element closely. So, but the current size is 27. If I should set it to maybe 50, you are going to realize that in as much as this one that I clicked is going to set it uniformly for all of them. If I just apply that 50, if I should hover over this one, you will see 50 there. If I do the same here, you see that all the distance is set to 50. And I could also click and just drag like this. It is, setting equal distance for all, in as much as it's just one. And then from the property panels, like I said, thank God for FIGMA, there are a lot of ways to do the same thing. From the property panel, it's just directly below this is orientation. Yes, the orientation. Directly below the orientation tab. So you could come and also set it there. It's the same thing with clicking here and setting here, and also dragging. It's the same thing you do here, right? So the next tab is to set. If you look at it, there is a bar. The icon, there is a bar to the left, a bar to the right, and a square at the middle. What it's telling you is this horizontal, the distance to the left and the distance to the right. And the square at the middle is talking about the element at the middle. So all these elements at the middle. So we use this tab to set the left and right padding of the frame. Let me set it and then we can understand. For now, the elements the frame is totally at the body of the elements. There is no space. But in some most designs, just like as you have here, look at all the elements, there is a space here. So it is never advisable to have your elements directly at the corner of the screen, right? You have to keep a space. So you use this tab to give that space. If I should set it 20, so now what it's doing is it's setting 20 pixels to the left and 20 pixels to the right. If I apply it, you're going to see, look at the frame, 20 pixels to the left and 20 pixels to the right. Let me set it to about 50 so that it will be very visible. So we have 50 pixels to the left, 50 pixels to the right. You can do the same thing with the height and the bottom of the frame. Just the same concept. You can set it to 50. So you have 50 pixels up and 50 pixels down. I hope we are following. Please, if we can, let us just quickly comment that we are following so that I'll be sure. Because I know this concept is pretty confusing to an extent. So let me just be sure that we are following. Please, I really appreciate if we should do that. Just quick comment to just say we understand it, or you could as well ask questions. I really also appreciate the questions so that I'm sure I'm not just talking, right? Maybe a 2 seconds break so that we can enjoy the music and leave the comments. That's Miracle, right? Forgotten your name. Okay, so as you said, you are following. I'm sure every other person is following. Let's proceed. So now we have learned how to set the top and the bottom padding and the left and the right padding. At the moment, we are setting them to be equal in size, right? We are setting them to be equal in size, which most of the times is what we want. But some of the times we also want a situation where, or we could have a situation where we want maybe the top to be 50 and the bottom to be maybe 100. There are a lot of situations like that, or the left to be 30 and the right to be 70. So in such scenario, if you should just set it this way, it's not going to work, because setting it this way, you just apply it up and down. Here we apply it up and down, and this other one we apply left and right. So what we do in that case is we unlink it. So look at left and right is being controlled from just this tab here. Top and bottom is being controlled from just this tab here. But we could individually set them. If you unlink them this way, now this is setting just left. So maybe I could set left to be 100. This one is setting just right. I could set right to be 20. Now if I should do that, you can see that there's more space here than here. We will need this in a lot of cases. In a lot of cases. And we could also do the same. Maybe top could be 30. Miracle, I don't understand. Okay, maybe that was a mistake. Your name is not Miracle. You are Chidebere. Forgotten your name. So top could be 30 and the bottom could be 50. So that could be what we want. So let me just come over it again. The way it was before, we could just set, you know, if we should enter the value here, it's going to set it for the left and right equal. If we should enter the value, it's going to set it for top and bottom equal. But by the means of, you know, unhinging them or unlinking them or clicking this button here, we can then go ahead and individually set top, left, right, and bottom. So maybe okay, a berry, right? So the same concept, right, could also be applied for the vertical, right? The same concept with the same padding, everything. It's just the same concept, just that one is for horizontal orientation and then one is for vertical orientation. But the only thing that is different, is the wrap, right? For wrap now, you then have one extra tab. If you remember, for let's say the vertical, we had just this tab that controls uniformly the space between each element, right? The same thing for the horizontal, we have just this tab there, just this tab here that controls the space between each element, right? So but for the wrap, let me quickly reduce this so that we have another element down. So for the wrap now, if you look closely, you will discover that this, let me remove this because this is just destroying the orientation, and then let me duplicate this so that we have equal elements, or let me give it a different color like green. I think green is, yep. So if you look closely, you don't even need to look closely, you have two distances or two separations that you need to account for. Number one is the separation between every vertical element and these two vertical elements. So these two, the distance between these two and the distance between these two. And the other distance you need to account for is the distance between these two, right? What did I say again? This distance between this and this distance between this. So you have your vertical distance between every element, and then you have horizontal distance between every element. The way it was before for just horizontal alignment is there is no element at the bottom. All the elements are positioned one after the other, you understand? So you have to account for just one distance. And then if you have vertical alignment, you also have to account for just one distance, right? But if you have it this way, a wrap, you then have both vertical alignments and horizontal alignments. So in this case, you have to account for two different distances. And thank God for Figma, there's a provision for that. This place that you used to account for just one, this one now is accounting for the horizontal gap, which is this and this. If I should change it to maybe 20, it's going to reduce the horizontal gap, right? But if I should then set this other one, now this thing was not here. When I set it, I will go back and we'll see that it was not there. If I then set this one to like 50, you're going to see that it has set this one to 20, the gap between these ones to 20, but the vertical gap now, the vertical distance is now 50. So you can manage. Figma is really giving us a lot of ability to manage our design to the fullest. So let me change it back to to vertical. You see that now we have just this one to control the vertical distance. The same with horizontal, we also just have this one. But for wrap, we now have this and we have this. So we can just go over, over the video. If we're not getting it, we can go over the video and practice and we'll get it, right? So the next thing to set for this auto layout is the positioning. Let me set it back to vertical so that it will be, clear. So at the moment now, all the elements are positioned to the left, right? They are positioned to the left. Let me also give it, or what I will do so that we can better understand, because this one, it will be better if we, work with just one. Now I just drag this rectangle out. I'm going to give the rectangle an auto layout frame, so that meaning that I'm going to place the rectangle in an auto layout so that I can better use it to explain. So the pattern, I could just use my shortcut Shift and A, but so that we all can follow, I will right click and then I will come to add auto layout and I will add auto layout. So we can see that it is now in an auto layout frame. Initially it was just sitting out there on its own, but now it's in an auto layout frame. So now, so that we can also better understand, I'm increasing the size, both the width and the height. This one now is set to fill container. Don't worry about that, I will explain that later. So I just want to give it a fixed height and a fixed width. Height and width is 76 pixels. And then what I will do now, I'll also better explain this later, but let me just do it now so that we can very much understand. Well, rough explanation. For an auto layout, you can treat an auto layout like a container. You can treat an auto layout like a frame, because actually it's a frame. It's a frame. So every other properties you can give to a frame, like the corner radius, right? I can give it a corner radius of 10 pixels. But let me give it 20 so that it will be very visible. Look at it, they now have a corner radius. I can give it a feel, like a color. Let me just, this is too white, let me make it gray. So every setting, I could also give it a stroke. That stroke we gave the other one. Let me give this one. Let me just give this one blue, Why not? And then I'll give it 5 pixels for the stroke. We have learned how to set all these things, so I won't go over it again. So even effect like shadow, we learned all those ones in our first class, so I won't bother. So but every settings you could do for a frame, you can also do for this auto layout, right? So initially I just wanted to do it so that I can use it to explain this, so that we can see the boundaries of the auto layout. But why not just go over it now? So now at the moment, if we should try to drag this container, on that frame before, let me also just quickly create a frame. The same height, the same property. The height, I think is, anyways, 262,250. So the same height, 262,250. The same border radius of 20. The same stroke of 5. And let me just pick this color. I thought I was how to pick color. Okay. So and fill color. Let me also pick the fill color. Okay. So everything now is the same. Both of them the same property, but this one is an auto layout and this is not. So if I should duplicate this one, I just want us to clearly see the difference. I should duplicate this one and place this the rectangle inside this frame. It is inside the frame, but if you notice, I can just place it anywhere I want. That's the very big disadvantage of using a frame. There is no organization. You can place it anywhere you want. There is no rule controlling, and if I should duplicate another one, I can just scatter them, place them anywhere I want. But on this auto layout, if I duplicate another one, because the auto layout, the frame is set to align element from top to bottom, if I should duplicate this, it's just going to place it at the bottom and then the equal distance between them. So they are going to be aligned straight. If I set it to align elements horizontally, we have already gone through that, to align it horizontally. But let me just set it back. In fact, let me delete this one because I want to explain that position. So with this frame now, as I was saying, you can drag elements, you can just move element anywhere. But with this auto layout, if you should drag the element this way, because of the setting you already gave the auto layout before, it's going to position the element where it is set. Not if you need it to position it in a different place, you have to specifically tell it. You can't just start dragging things around. And of course, imagine that we can just easily drag this text this place. Of course, it's going to mess things up, right? So this thing that we're designing here, One day we'll get to the level where we can design a software as big as this. So it is the same concept, right? So we have to obey the concept. Thank God for auto layout, which is also forcing us to obey the concept. So now, how do we position elements in an auto layout frame? How to position elements is, that's actually the last concept we need to learn for an auto layout, is you come to this panel. So if you check this, look at this square here, there are how many? Is 9, right? Yeah, it's 9, 3, 2, 3. There are 9 buttons to click. It is at default positioning element to the top right. This is just very, how do I put it, easy to understand. To the top right. If you click on this, now at default it's positioning every element to the top right. So even if you have 10 elements, it's just going to position it to the top right and leave every other space at this part. So if you select top center, it's going to position the element, all the elements at the top center. So let me move this out. Let me move this out so that I will increase the size of the auto layout. So if you notice, even as I am dragging it this way, it is still positioning the element at the middle because I set the auto layout to position the element at the top center. Right? If I should do that for a frame, it's not going to work. The element is just going to be at the same spot, which is not good for different screen size. Right? So what with this, it's just going to position the element where we have set it to position it. If I don't want it to be positioned this way, I could as well set to position at the top corner, and then as I'm dragging it, just remain at that top corner, right? And then we can position it at the top right. Also position it at the right center, bottom right, bottom center, left bottom or bottom left, and then left center, right? And then finally we can position it at the center. So with this now, you are dragging it to always forever remain at the center. I'll still compare it with this because I love auto layout more than frame, right? So why not shame frame? So with this now, if you select the frame and you're dragging it, the guy is just going to start going. Forget that something is positioned at its middle. So now you now have a new center. You have to then click on the element and start looking for where the center is. If you start, maybe there is a reason, maybe somebody with smaller screen comes. That's how, man, you won't see anything on the screen again. So it's always good to use auto layout. If you position it at the middle, no matter the size of the screen, it's always going to obey that positioning and remain at the middle. So let's say you have 2 elements. I just duplicated this one. It's positioned at the middle, right? Middle meaning that the space is going to be totally around it. So all the space are going to be spread evenly around it. If I should, this is just a very simple thing to understand. If I should position at the top center, all the space is now, just gathered to the other part. Well, I'm sure we have understood it. So this is for this auto layout section is almost everything. I said almost everything you need to know about auto layout. So but now like this, we are still using fixed height and width, which is not very good, right? It's not very good. If you click on the auto layouts, you come here, you see that we set the width to 515. We didn't manually set it. It's when we are dragging it this way, right? Now it's 648. The height is, but it's not very good. I remember that. If you remember, I said that. So the best way to do it is to set it to hug its content. Now, of course, it is now small, right? So, but instead of dragging the width this way, it's better to set the what's it called? To set the width. This is confusing. Set the width. But what I just mean is to set the width using. So it's better to set the width using the padding. So currently it has 10 pixels both left and right. So maybe I need it to have 100 pixels left and right. So look at that, increase the size. So in as much as it is trying to hog the contents, but now don't forget that inside this frame it has 3 contents. Number 1, the width of this element, and then number 2, the padding, left and right padding. The right padding is 100 pixels, the left padding is 100 pixels, and the width of this element is 76. So at the end of the day, the entire frame will be 276. If you look at it, 276. So let's say I want to achieve maybe 576, right? Instead of dragging it this way and just, limiting flexibility of platforms. Because dragging it this way, meaning that we are in programming, we call it hard coding. It is not dynamic, we are just hard coding. Instead of dragging it that way, it's better we select it to hog and then we increase it from the padding here. So we could set padding of maybe 300 pixels left and right, and it will assume the width we want. It's just a simple calculation. Let's say we want 576. We already know that the content inside is 76, and left and right will have to be 250, 250. So we'll just click on the frame, and then we'll set 250 left and right, and then at the end of the day the frame is 76. So manipulating auto layouts, basically this is, I don't know if I should proceed. There are a lot of way more interesting features, of course, very much interesting features. Like one for responsive design, all these elements inside, we are not going to learn that today. I think it's already past 8. We are going to proceed to application development because we haven't really touched that. So, but just to just to introduce that, this element is set to fixed, right? We could set it to fill container. So now filling container means it's going to stretch as much as it can to get to the boundaries of the container. Now it is getting to the boundaries, of course, because of this padding. If I should remove the padding now, let's say I now set the padding left and right to 0, you're going to see that it will, okay, the container is set to hog. So in that case, as the container is increasing, look at this first, what's it called? The first element that is set as a fixed width of 76 is just remaining the way it is. But this other one that is set to stretch, right? This is a very important concept. We're really going to use it. A time will come, I downloaded a couple of templates that we could just use to practice. Like, let me just drag one into the screen. It's going to appear here. So like this, auto layouts is really used in all this, right? So we have to really understand this concept to be able to work on things like this. So as I was saying, so as the frame is increasing in size, this one is stretching to fill the entire container, right? So now if we now decide to give it a padding left and right of, let's say, 50 pixels, it is not, of course, going to disobey the padding. Don't forget that the entire idea of an auto layout is setting rules for elements inside, and then the rules must obey the element must obey the rules, right? So increasing it is stretching, but it cannot stretch beyond the padding, right? Well, if we have questions, we can ask questions on this class again because we're already running. Is it behind? Already running behind, so, but time is already against. Yeah, let me use it that way. Time is already against. I'm an application developer, so I am not very good with English. I established that on our first class, so you just have to really pardon me. So this marks the end of our class on application design, UI UX. I'm not going to do a quick summary. The video is there for you. Immediately the video is over, immediately the class is over, you can just go back and watch the video. So I'm not going to do a quick summary. Should I give an assignment? Okay, yeah, the assignment I'm going to give, or I will give the same assignment as before, which is to create this. If you guys do it, good. One thing I will not do in this class, right, is to just start following us up like like we are not here to learn, right? I won't do that. I won't come and start pressuring us and start reminding us on the group why is nobody sending assignment. I won't do that because me too, I'm very in fact, I'm really violating my own time. Even being in this class currently, I'm currently working on about 2 different projects. I'm really violating my time. A lot of people are on my neck literally, so I can't then come and start following us up. Since we decided to be on this course, we should obey. If I say we should do assignment, we should do it. It's not adding anything to me. It's just because I know that when I was also learning, there was almost no time that I was not trying to practice. Then I didn't even have a computer. Sometimes I'll go and pay in cyber cafe. Sometimes I will manipulatively look for anybody and just borrow their PC and just quickly enter YouTube and start practicing. I didn't have anybody like me that was teaching. I would randomly go to YouTube. I didn't even know what to search for. Right? So the culture is 80% practice and 20% learning, like knowledge. You gain 20% knowledge, practice that same thing over and over again. Can we also get the template for practice? Sorry, just quickly on the comment because I want to move away from this. The template, are you talking about this? Are you talking about this or this? Well, yeah, you can. Don't worry. No, you won't get this. You won't get this because this is. I want us to work on this on our next class. So, but this one that I designed on our last class, you can. I'm going to send it on the group. I'm sure you're on the group. If you're not on the group, try and join the group. I'm going to send it on the group. So, this marks the end of our class. Let me just quickly rearrange this. Before I used group, but now let me just use auto layout and quickly arrange them because that's the fastest way to do it. I just select the three of them and then shift A. See, that's just the same distance. That's just so perfect. And then I can just align them inside this frame. I taught us how to align before, both horizontally and vertically. So this is what we are designing. Then we should submit it on the group, or you can send it out. No, send it on the group with your name and your state. So thank you guys for learning. Let's proceed to application development. So for the application development on our last class, I dropped the link to the web, it's like an IDE, a web IDE, that's integrated development environment, where we can use to practice that syntax. That is the programming language that is used to create Flutter applications. I have explained the difference between programming language and framework, the difference between that and Flutter. So I won't go into all that. So this website, actually a web app, because we can interact with it, is .dev. I already dropped the link in the group. You can go and practice, but just watch the video now. After the video, you rewatch it and then practice. So in programming, let me just quickly delete all this. I explained some of this before. So that last class too, I also explained the idea of application, the idea of rendering anything on a digital platform. You don't render even this Figma that we used to design. In as much as when we export PDF, we export JPEG, we export PNG, all these things are just pictures, right? But this thing that is running this application is code, strictly code. That our last class, people were not much. So let me just, so that I will just, let me not be too strict. Let me just quickly do this so I can explain that. It's just strictly code. So whatever you see that is rendered on a web page is strictly code, nothing else. Code. Just like this is just an example. This is like this particular site is for HTML developers. We are developing Flutter. Flutter is better than HTML in my opinion. So, but I just want to use it to practice so that we can render things. So this is like this IDE we have here, where we can write our code, right? And then this is like a web browser where the code can be rendered. So it is sectioned into two. This is just for practice. So whoever created this app created it for practicing how a real web page is. The interaction between writing code and seeing the code rendered on a web page. So this is like an interface for a web page. This is like an IDE where you write code. So here now, this code here, this is a heading. This is what it displays here. This is a paragraph. This is what is displayed here. So there's really no other thing other than writing code, and then when you run it on a web browser, it's going to run the code, compile it, and render it on the web browser. If I should add another line, let's say H2, I won't explain all this concept because it is not even part of our syntax. Let's say this is a new line. and then I close it. Don't worry about this syntax H2. I won't explain it. And I run it, you'll see that a new line has been added. Let me see if I can remember the syntax for style. This is not my programming language. Every programming language has their syntax. Let me just quickly look it up. Thank God that let us also learn how to use the web browser. Syntax for CSS inline styling. My guys, we'll just write this thing here. P, okay, you have P, style is equal to this syntax. Hey, forgotten this thing. I used to write HTML and CSS code before, and then I switched to Flutter because in my opinion it's much better. Yeah, I was actually getting a shot. So we have style, and then color blue, the font size 46 pixels, and then we have the text. So if I should run this, you'll see that it has given it a new style, right? So basically everything you see that is rendered on a web page, all these different sizes of text, different color, images, all these things, they are codes that are written on the back end. I could also drag in my own, like for the particular app that I'm developing now, so that we can see it, but maybe should I do that? It's just going to take our time for no reason. So, but basically is you write code. I've already explained syntax, so I won't do that. Basically, you write code and then you run it on a compiler. Compiler converts the code to a machine code. To a machine code, that means the version of the code that a computer device can understand, right? And then the computer device then interprets it and displays it on the device, whether it is a web page or a mobile app. Let me just quickly show us for the current app I'm working on. Let me just take 2 seconds for the sake of explaining. So I'm using Visual Studio Code to work as the most popular code editor. Sorry for the delay. Stuck it. Yep. So this is my own current application I'm working on. See all this code. Maybe on our next class, so there are different files, right, running. Maybe I should increase it so I can better see it. So maybe on our next class, I will also display the application or any of my application, even demo project, so that we can just really sink it into our head that all these things we use on our phones, all these things are code that are running. So that's that code we want to start learning now. Okay, we are back here. So just as we see, if I should change this color now, it's on blue. If I should change it to red and I run it, it's going to change it to red. If I should change the font size to, I think I can even, let me change the font family. I've forgotten HTML syntax, but let me just font family. Let's say am I correct? I run it. No, not correct. Okay, it's supposed to be a semicolon. Yeah, I'm correct. It's just that's supposed to be a semicolon. So that's just what it is. Now back to our DATs. Alright, back to our DATs. In every DAT application, the entry point to run a data application is this main. So when you want to run a data app, if you don't have this main, the computer, the web browser is not going to know where to, it has to enter from somewhere and then look for every code that is inside that place. It's not just meant to start interpreting code from everywhere, because it is running code sequentially from one line to the other. You understand? So the entry point of every data application is this main function. But don't worry about that. Subsequently, we are going to learn about functions, and then we can then better understand this. So the concepts of programming The very first thing I will teach us is not a concept of programming, it's just a utility thing. It's commenting. So you know everything that is on a file is what the computer will render. So whatever the computer sees on the file, the computer will believe it is part of the program that you have written for it to execute. You understand? But there are some times that you want to write some things that are not part of what the computer should execute. Some things like maybe you are writing and you are explaining some things. Like now on this particular course, I'm going to be explaining a lot of things as text. Let me see if I can. Yep, I think. Is it better? I think it is. Let me just go back. So I'm going to be explaining a lot of things as text. You understand? It's going to be there. And some other times you wrote some code, you don't want to use it anymore, you modified it. Like as I was coding today, I did it. I was using um, column. Column is just one widget. Along the line, I decided no, let me use list view builder. So instead of me to delete that entire code for the column that I've written, I might decide to come back to it. You understand? So what I did is I commented it out, and then I wrote the code to use the list view builder. And then after writing, at some point I realized no, the column is better. And then I commented the list view builder, continued with my column. So if I had gone ahead to delete it, that's how I would have lost my code. So commenting is used for a lot of reasons. A lot of reasons. Sometimes you write code and you might even forget what you are intending to do there. I mean there. Some weeks later you come back, if you explained it through a comment, you really appreciate yourself for doing that. You understand? So commenting is just writing text on a file that we don't want the computer to execute. Basically, that's what commenting is. Because if we write maybe something like string, if you notice now, it is just before I'm going to explain all these things. If you notice now, it is telling me I don't know what this string means because it is trying to execute it. Look at the red line under it. It is trying to execute it, but it is just there. Variable must be declared using the keywords, right? So it's trying to think, is this variable? Is this a function? Is this because I just wrote anything on the screen, right? So it is trying to execute it. So imagine now I want to write maybe like an information, maybe like on the next line I will be explaining what a comment is. So this is an information maybe for myself that will help me to understand what I want to do in the next line, or maybe somebody else that will have access to this file. Like some of my students, I share my programming files with them. Like the lesson file, I will upload it on my GitHub. They'll go to my GitHub and download it and further learn. So I will leave most of this explanations so that when they're looking at it, they can understand what I'm doing on each line. Understand? In such scenario, look at all the errors that is here. All the errors you can see on this that part, you can see each error. So look at all the errors that are here because it is trying to understand what all these things mean so that it can execute it, but it is not understanding it. So in such scenario, I'm just going to create so many errors on my application that will totally break my application. So if I really want to do that, I will just comment this line out. Now that I commented it, all the errors will disappear because it has understood that, okay, this is not a code that I should execute. It is just a comment. It is just a comment, just as the name implies. It is a comment. I'm trying to make a comment, right? So there are two main ways we can create comments. I taught us on our last class. One of the ways is to just put two slash, I think the name is slash, yeah, two slash before the sentence you want to start writing. Now this way, what this way does is it's going to comment out every text that is straight, that is on this line. So every text that is on this line straight to infinity is going to comment it out. So if I come to this other line and write another thing, this is a new line, I write another thing like this, that comment is not helping here because the comment is only for this line. So that is where the second comment comes in. So for this first comment, probably like as I used it here, on the next line I will be explaining what a comment is. You understand? It is perfect for this use case. Or maybe I want to explain some things that I will even need to say number one, like maybe I want to say and let's say there are different types of data types in that programming language. So this is actually a thing because there are actually different types of data types. And then I will say semicolon, abi, of course, because that's how you write sentence. And then I'll say the first type. I might put one. The first type is let me say first is string. Second is integer, right? So this is actually a whole thing. Like, I'm sure you understand what I mean, Sha. This is not just a single line. I'm not trying to explain with just one line. I'm trying to, after all this, maybe I might even start saying a string is, a blah 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 blah. This is what I want, because I want my comment, like I want what I'm explaining to be at this, this structure, to have this structure. But just one line comment cannot work in this case, because just you see what happened here. Just commented only this line. That's where the second type of comment will come in. That second type, now let me indent it so that we can understand. That second type, the syntax for the second type is you put the slash and then you put asterisk. So now putting asterisk, if you notice, it has commented everything down. So everything starting from this line down to the end of the page will be commented out. So how to end it is to come, you put the asterisk and then you put the slash. You understand? So, but that's why there's a way to end it, because imagine after you finish explaining everything you are explaining, you want to then start with your actual code. Let's say you now write a function, void, let's say print, maybe just a string, like, don't mind me, I always, beans is very easy to write, so I always write it, I don't know why. Okay, well, let me just use the normal print. So, what is this function? Function body. Oh shit, because of this. Yep. Sorry, I just made a mistake there. So, print beans, the name of the function. I'll teach us how to, the meaning of all this. Our teachers, don't worry about it. So now this is a function that I want to run, right? And maybe the function is, all this explanation I did here is to explain this function so that somebody that is trying to interpret this function can better understand it when they read through this paragraph. Understand? And then I start the, the comment. I started the comment. And if you notice, the comment has also commented out the actual code that should be run. You understand? So that's why you need to end it. So I'm telling the comment, start from here, comment every other thing that you see, because all of them are part of the explanation. And then when I'm done with the explanation, I'm then going to end the comment, and all my code are going to run, because the comment is not getting to the code. This is where the comment ends. So it started here and ended here. The reason I decided to explain comment is because we are actually going to use it. So, and I'm sure we have understood what comment is. I'm very, very sure I've understood what comment is. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all these things, and then we can actually start learning, right? So that's why I told us initially that the comment is not really part of programming. It is just, part of, I don't know what to call it. So, so there are different concepts in programming. There is data types. There is variables. There's variables in programming. There are functions. There are lists. There are a lot of things. I think asynchronous. Asynchronous. There are a lot of. We are going to go through all of them. So, but we are starting with data types, right? What are data types? Data types is just like a maths, where you have. No, maybe in English, not math. English, where you have texts, like boy, like yam is a text, right? Is a text. You spell it YAM. You have why can't I just find any easy example? You have maybe chair. It's just a text. You want to display a text on a web page. You have to use a data type that can display a text. and then I'm going to write all of them on the screen, but let me just quickly go ahead and explain them. And then the next kind of data type we have is a number. So in programming, you need to explicitly state things out, right? Because there are a million and one things that the computer is trying to render. So you need to explicitly state things out. If you want to display a text, you need to tell the computer that you are displaying a text. If you want to display a number, and you know in numbers, if you studied maths and a number, you know there are two types of number. There is a whole number and there is fraction. So these are two types of numbers, whole numbers and fraction. I'm sure this stream is still going. Yeah, it is. So there are whole numbers and there are fractions, right? Sorry, 1 second. Okay, there are whole numbers and there are fractions. So you need to tell the computer, the browser or the device, whatever, that you are working with a whole number or you are working with what's it called? A fraction. You know, a fraction is just, we know that like a number that has decimal place 2.5 is a fraction. A whole number is just a whole number is just 2. A whole number is just 2 or 10 or 30 or so far it doesn't have a fraction. So this is one very important data types. We have I've talked about text, I've talked about whole number, I've talked about fraction, and then the next data type is is Boolean. That's the name, Boolean. But what it just means is true or false. So use it to run conditionals. We are still going to learn about conditionals. So Boolean is just true or false. Is this thing true? Programming is all about just like real life, just like our real life now. You might say if today is Monday, just like you wake up in the morning and that day is Sunday, you have to go to church. So the programming that is running in your head is you're asking yourself, is today Sunday? If yes, then go to church. So in programming is that same way. Is this that? If yes, like if true, if it is true that thing is that, run this function. If I want to relate it with you, if it is true that today is Sunday, then run the function that will take you to church. If it is false, then do other things. So that's what Boolean is all about. Boolean is just used to check whether one thing is true or false. So now let me start writing. I'm sure I've explained. We have text as a data type. We have whole number as a data type. We have fraction as a data type. And then we have Boolean, which is true or false. So now, that text is not actually called text in programming. It's called string. It's called string. So let me say string name is equal to, or string my name, let me just, my name is equals to Alex Onyeka. So because, okay, I'm fast tracking, but I fast track, but let me. I remember that there's a way I've not explained it, and let me do that now. So every string in programming in that must be enclosed with this quotation mark. So you can't come now and say you want to write string and start writing this. In as much as it is text, the programming language is not going. The platform that is rendering it, whether mobile or desktop or web browser, is not going to interpret it as text, because it's going to believe you are calling either a function or okay, let me not go too far. Let me explain something so we can understand this. In programming, there are something that are called keywords. Keyword, just as you have this void, is a keyword. You have main, is the name of a function. So there are things that are there to help the compiler, whether it is phone or web browser or desktop, to help it to tell it what to do. There are some other things that are just for information, like this your text is just for information. You can put anything you like there. But there are some things that are keywords. Some are inbuilt, like this void is inbuilt. It's not you that created it. This main too is inbuilt. But you can create your function or your variable. We'll learn about variable and function. You can create it and give it name. Now that name, you will leave it when the when the compiler wants to run, it will then use that name you give it. You gave it to run whatever you want it to run. it is not just a text. You can't just come and start writing things. As I'm writing it, if you look at it, the color is blue. It's telling me that just the way this one is blue here, this is a function. This is the name of a function. The name is main function. That's the way this one too is blue. It's believing, the programming compiler here is believing that this is maybe the name of a function or the name of something. So it has to be. So you can't just start writing your text this way. You have to enclose it in this semicolon. If you look at it now, as I did it, it now changed it to red because the color of text is red. You understand? So this is one data type. Another data type, like I explained, is text. For the text, you write text this way in column. Is it column? No, it's not column, sorry, in quotation mark. And then for the whole number, in programming, it's actually called integer. That is int. In that, actually, it's called int. So, this text is called string. The text is called string. But whole number is called int. For integer. What's it called? That's fraction. Fraction is called double. I'm going to write all these things so that we can see it, but I need to explain it this way. And then the bool is just called bool. That is, the boolean is called bool on this Dart programming language. Now, let's move on. The next concept in programming language, in programming, is variable. What is variable? Variable is what you save your data. You can save anything inside a variable and reuse it whenever you want to. Whenever you need that data. Let's say I need to write my name somewhere. Of course, in an application, if you have logged into an application and you wrote your name, there are a lot of places the application could display your name. On your profile page, when you comment on somebody's text, when you post a video, there are a lot of places the application could display your name. Now, displaying your name in all those places, they don't need to go and start writing your name at the back end, like hard coding it there. What they need to just do is to save your name in a variable and then call the name using that variable whenever they need it. Imagine I create an application that I need to display my name in 10 different places. I can write it this way. Don't forget the way to create a string. I can write it this way, my name, right? No, Alex, sorry. Alex, time is really running. Alex Onyeka, right? Alex Onyeka, this is one. I could come down again and write the same name, Alex Onyeka. See, I've already made an error, sir. I've already made an error. My actual name is Onyeka. Now I, mistakenly spelled E before Y. That's an error, which is normal for humans to make. I can come down again. Let's imagine these are different places I need to display the name on the web page or on the mobile app. I can come down again and write it again. Now I might mistakenly start with small letter, Alex Onyeka. So it's normal for humans to make mistakes. And so that's why it's better. The best way to do it is to then save this value that we are going to use a lot of times inside a variable. Because the value is a string, we have to save it in a variable, in a string type of variable. So how to create a variable? You have to define the type that you are saving inside the variable. Now, because it's a string, it's my name I want to save. I have to tell the variable that okay, the data type I'm saving in this variable is string, right? And then I'll give it any name I want. So I'm giving the data I'm saving inside the variable. I'm giving the variable any name I want. So I could call it my name so that I can easily remember it. I could call it maybe his name, anything, right? See, now it is now blue, meaning that this is not just a text. It is either a variable or a function. So now this is a syntax to create a variable. You write the data that the variable is storing, you write the name of the variable, and then you now set equal to, and then you now actually define the variable. So here now I'll now say Alex Onyeka. Of course, you can save any text. So now what I have done is I just saved this text inside this variable. So now if I need this text any other place, because I have carefully written this down here, and I'm sure because I can, because I wrote it once, I can really look at it and be sure I got it correctly. As I'm sure I got it correctly, instead of me coming down at every point I want to display my name and be writing this text, right? I could just write this variable there and it's going to display this text. That's one very one very good thing about programming is this encapsulation. You can store data inside variable and call it wherever you want. Now you can store even a whole page of document inside just a single name like this, and then wherever you want to display that whole dictionary, wherever you want to save inside, even functions, even whatever, you can save it inside variable, and whenever you want to use it, instead of going to write all those things, you can just use the variable name. So now I saved my name inside this variable. Because my name is a text, it is a string, so I have to tell this variable that the value I'm saving inside it is a string. So I have to use string first, then the name of the variable and the actual value. So let's say I want to save my age. I will then say, because my age is an integer, nobody is 27 and a half years. Okay, yeah, of course, 27 years some months, but if they ask your age, you just say you are 27, you just say you are 35, you just say you are 54, you are 16. You can't go and start, when you go further to start explaining, even me, I will suspect you, what are you trying to prove? You understand? So my age, every age is integer, because it's just a whole number. You understand? If you complete the next age, you are the next age. Forget about some Gen Zs do that. You ask them your age. What's your age? They say I'll be 12 in 2 months. What the hell are you telling me you'll be 12 in 2 months time? What's your age now? I'm 11. Good. So age is a whole number. So when you want to save an age, you use integer. I told us integer, the data type first, and then the name of the variable. So now I will now give the name anything I like. Maybe I might say age. I might even just say age or my age, right? And then I'll say equal to, and then because it is a whole number, it is only a text that we use this column. This quotation mark is only when we are saving value inside text. When we are trying to write a text. Because it is an integer, we can just write it that way. I could say my age is 35. And it will, now wherever I want to call my age, even if I have forgotten, you understand? Because somebody might be using my app and I want to display the person's age in a lot of places on the website or on the application. I might forget it when I'm coding. You understand? I might remember it to write the actual age on the first page, and then after maybe coding for 2 days and I get to the next point where I want to write the person's age again, I'll forget it. So but that point where I remember, I can just save it as a variable, and whenever I want to display that age, I will just write the variable name and the age will appear. So that's how to save an integer inside a variable. The same pattern with a double. So you want to save a fraction, a double. So let's say I want to save maybe how much is in my account. You know that one, you can have 25,500, something like that. That's not the amount in my account. So we could have that. Or maybe, let me go away from money. Let's say you want to save the value of pi. Let's say the value of pi. Pi is 3.1414143 or 147 or something like that. But let's say we want to say the value of pi. Now, because it is a decimal number, it's a number that has a decimal point. It's a fraction. I've been saying fraction. I'm sorry, please. It's decimal. What? It's decimal, please, not fraction. So, in that case, we use a double. We could say, value, any name. This is me just choosing to give in this name. Value of pi. This is spelling of pi. I don't care. But pi is just P here. And I say equal to, and I say 3.142. And then, because, I gave it just network. I gave it that. Just network. So there's no error. So the same syntax. You write the data that you'll be saving inside the variable. Oh my god, it's 6 minutes to 9. You write the data you're saving inside the variable, you write the name of the variable, and then you write the value. Right? And then the next one, we have the boolean, which is this bool. That's the name, bool. So now we want to say maybe today is Sunday, right? Maybe we want to say is today Sunday, true or false. Of course it is true. So this boolean can take only true or false. So we're going to see how to apply all of them one after the other. So there's something I'm forgetting. There's something I'm forgetting. Well, all we have been doing so far is just we have learned data type. I'm really happy about that. We have learned variable. I'm really happy about that. But to really better understand data type and even how variable work at all, we need to start displaying it. We need to start working with it, right? So let us quickly learn how to work with it. On our next class, this is just 5 minutes tonight. On our next class, we'll then start working with it. But for here, one of the easiest ways to work as a programmer, you write a code and then the code gets displayed on a web page that users all around the world can interact with, right? But sometimes, I explained this in our last class, sometimes while you are still working, there are some times that some things you just want to test run some things. You don't want it to appear on the front end of the application where people can see it. You just want to test run some things to see the result of some things. You use something called print. That print is to just print it on a place where only you can see it as a program, right? On a place where only you can see it. Like in this particular application, this is that place. In this particular IDE, actually, this is that place. So if we say print is actually a function. It's a function that we use to print things on the console. We use it to print things on the console. Like the console is just where only you as the programmer have access to. You can see it. So if I say print, what I was forgetting, thank God I remembered. So the syntax of a DAT language is after every code line, you have to use a semicolon. So when you are done with every code, declaring variable, declaring function, you have to use a semicolon. If I should remove this semicolon, this ID is going to tell me that it is expecting to see a semicolon after this. So if you notice, all the variables I declared, I always put semicolon. So I just remembered now I wanted to use this function. So this print is a function that we use to display things on this console, right? So now what do I want to print? I have to give it a string. It is a string, that's a text. Now if I say print this is my first let's say first print, and I run it, it's going to display this text on this console. Sometimes network delays it. Let's just hope that doesn't happen today. Okay, let me refresh the page. And if I run it, remember I told us that every code that we run is a code that is inside this main function. This is the main function. You have the data type of the function, this data type. I will explain what this void is on our next class. And then you have the name of the function, which is main. You have the bracket. I will explain the structure of the function. And then you have this curly bracket. So this curly bracket, this part, everything inside this curly bracket is the body of the function. So it is only what is inside the curly braces that will run. Understand? So all these variables, they are not inside that function. So when I run this function, it's just going to run only this print because that's the only thing that is inside. So let me run it. Let's hope it runs now, because sometimes network delays this ID. So if it runs, it's going to print this. Yeah, look at it. This is my first print because that's the value I put inside here. So now let me better explain that thing I was explaining with that name, Jonathan. Let's imagine, let me print my name. That's my name. Let me print it. I mean Alex Onyeka. So this is my name. So let's say this is one place, just for instance. So this is one place I want to display my name on the web app or application. If I run this, it's going to display it. Nice. Let's say I want to now display it in like 10 different places. This is one of the places. Maybe this other place is the profile. Just for instance, this other place is the profile. I will come there again. I will now write Alex Onyeka. I might make a mistake. Let me just fake the mistake. You see, okay, there's no Y there. Let me just fake it. So now there is a mistake here. Let's say I want to display this one now, maybe on a comment section. I might even have forgotten the name of the person. I will go and write Patrick. Patrick Joshua. That's a very big problem. Alex Onyeka made a comment and people are seeing it as Patrick. Maybe I forgot the name again. I then wrote Ebere. That's a very big problem. I forgot the name again. I wrote, well, let me just have fun with this. I wrote Excel. That's another big problem because there's a lot of inconsistency. If I run it, let's hope it runs. So I'm just trying to refresh the web page and run it. So I'm just trying to illustrate that we could need look at it. This one is correct because this is the first time I'm writing it. Obviously, I remember it. At the second part, I'm beginning to forget it. I made a mistake here. Now I'm now writing things that are totally different, right? So it is a normal thing that could happen. It's a normal thing that could happen, right? So, but if we then save the name, maybe this first time that we remember it and we are sure of the spelling, we then save the name in this variable. Instead of writing the text whenever we want to display it, we could just come. Now we are saying print this text, Abi. We could just say print this variable, his name. Is the same thing because the variable, the data of the variable. Remember we explicitly English. Remember we explicitly said that the variable will save a data of string, right? And of course that's what we did, because if we had saved maybe number like 10, it's going to throw an error to say no, a value of type integer can't be assigned to a variable of it's supposed to be complete, but let me just extend it. You see it can't be saved to a variable of type string. So we are telling this variable, we are telling the programming compiler that this variable is supposed to take a value of string, but we are now giving it a value of integer. This is how an integer is. So if we want to really give it 10, what we should do, remember, is to now wrap it around a quote. Yes, quotes. Oh, let's forget this thing. So wrap it around a quote. I just forget the name. It's not like I forget the syntax. I write it every day. This is what I do every day. Well, I don't say it every day. That's why. So where were we? Yeah. So now let me just change this back to my name. I mean Alex Chinyeka, sorry. So now this print is meant to take, if I should put maybe integer of 10, it's still going to throw, okay, you can print it actually. This is an ID. If it's on a programming, what's it called, it's going to throw an error because print doesn't take value of integer, it takes value of string, but the same thing. So now instead of writing the names just the way I did here one after the other, I could just say print his name. So now I will now call that variable. It's called calling in programming. I will now call the variable, or I could also say I reference the variable. So the data that I saved inside this variable is what is now going to be displayed. So even if I want to display that exact same things 2 million times, I can just keep writing his name that 2 million times, and it's going to display. Let me just refresh the page and run it. So this variable is really helping. Look at it. You see that same Alex Chinyeka because that is what I saved inside him. So all these times that I've forgotten the name or the idea of spelling it wrongly also. And the good thing about variable is if I now spell the variable wrongly, it will tell me, like, look at this one, I called it name. It's telling me that it cannot find a variable called his name. So I must have to remember the name and say his name and actually spell it well. So if I go ahead and replace all these ones, I'm going to see that it will just display it as many times as I want with high level of consistency, because it's not all over the place. I just wrote it once and I'm just using it. But that's a very good thing about object-oriented programming, reusability. English. So look at it, it is very consistent, right? So I just taught us how to then use the data the same way. I can also, instead of writing my age, instead of writing 36, I could also come here and write my age. So it's the same. Let me just refresh. I know it's not going to work, so let me refresh. So if I run it, Oh, I didn't spell it well. My page. If I should run it, it's going to display my name and then my age. That's not my real age. And then I'm not 35, I beg. So I've taught us how to create a variable and how to use a variable, at least just to print it in the console. So this is the end of our class for today. On our next class, we'll learn better ways of writing string. We'll learn other data types, and then we'll learn the structure of function, and then also for the Figma, we are going to then learn how to use the auto layout. So thank you guys for sticking around for the class. And I gave us an assignment on Figma to create this. I'm going to send this to the group. Just, oh my god. Okay, yeah, thank God. Yeah, you know what I just thought? I just remembered that if I should say we should send it, some of us might just go and just resend what I sent. So the way I'm going to be sure you did it is, let it be your name that is here. So this should be your name. Write your name here. Maybe you should say my name is. So Excel or Chidebere, any of you. That's how you want it. Agalachi. I don't really know how to spell that your name. Agalachi. Well, I know I didn't do just okay. Agalachi. I'm correct though. Yep, I'm good. So Excel, this is how yours should be. Chidebere, yours should be. My name is, so that I'm going to be sure you did it. You can ask questions, right? You can ask questions. Come to my DM. These days I'm very busy, but you know, get us a B. I really love it when people try to learn, right? So I must always make out time. So thank you guys for sticking through the class. Have a good night.